welcome back to me talking about whatever I want to talk about. And today we are going to talk about multisexuality, or M-spec identities. So the opposite of multisexual is monosexual, and the romantic counterpart is, and this will be important later, multiromantic. Multisexual, or M-spec, is a broad term which refers to attraction to multiple genders. Some have pushed for bisexual to be used as the umbrella term, but this is often done by M-spec exclusionists or battle-axe bisexuals. An M-spec exclusionist, which I should specify and be very clear here is not something you want to be, also known as a battle-axe bisexual or a band-aid bisexual, ban-bi, is an exclusionist who believes that M-spec labels besides bisexual contribute to biphobia and transphobia. Now, as a pansexual, gender-fluid trans woman, I can tell you that is absolutely ridiculous. They also believe that M-spec labels are the same as bisexual, that all M-spec labels besides bisexual are just bisexual, which is not true, of course. There's also bloodshed bisexuals, which is a term used by battle-axe bisexuals who believe in doxing, threats, cyberbullying, and stuff like that is okay. Most bloodshed bisexuals will refer to themselves as battle-axe bis, but you can usually tell the difference by their reputation, content, etc. Now, M-spec exclusionists and battle-axe bis are not part of the GRSM or LGBTQIA+ community and are why many M-spec people no longer feel safe in bisexual spaces, despite bisexuality being a perfectly valid M-spec identity. However, I can't stress this enough, of course bisexuality and bisexual people are absolutely valid and an important part of the GRSM community and part of the multisexual spectrum. It is only manipulative gaslighting erasers such as battle-axe bis that cause harm and division we take issue with. To keep yourself safe, avoid these people. Exclusionism is not, never has been, and never ever will be okay. So, it's really important to let people have the freedom to label themselves based on what they feel best describes how they experience attraction. Someone else's identity is not erasure of yours, and claiming it is actually erasure and bullying in and of itself. Just like it's not even a little bit okay under any circumstances to be a TERF or a trans medicalist, neither is M-spec exclusion okay, and it never, again, never ever will be. Now to happier matters, to more adequately explain M-spec identities, we gotta talk about the split attraction model, or the SAM. The split attraction model is something that many, not all, but many, A-spec and arospec, asexual and aromantic people, which, by the way, exist and are valid, often use to describe their identities, although it can also be used by people who are not A-spec. I should say here, this is a very simple version of the SAM. The bisexual and biromantic should probably be replaced with multisexual and multiromantic. That's part of why I got into that at the beginning. As we go through M-spec identities, I will be saying the romantic equivalent, as someone can be, as we know from the SAM, heterosexual but biromantic or panromantic even, and the labels can go on, and this is a very useful spectrum because guess what? Bi-lesbian, someone that is bisexual but homoromantic, or homosexual but biromantic, and bi-gays or pan-gays, omni-gays, whatever you feel best describes yourself, that is all valid. And I've found much use in it myself, as, for instance, I am demi-romantic, which means someone who only develops romantic feelings for another person when they have a strong emotional connection to them. Demi-romantic people can be any gender identity or sexual orientation, and it's the romantic equivalent of demisexual, which I am not. I am pansexual. So while if you have a nice ass, I'll more than likely be able to appreciate your figure, regardless of gender, I have zero interest at all in dating you. While I'm sure you're spectacular and we can totally be friends, you are a mere mortal, and my wife Kushka is, as I perceive them, I don't know, basically an unmatchable goddess, or at least a demigoddess. Now, as a polytheist, I should specify I'm being a little coy there and metaphorical. I don't literally think my wife is a goddess, just so I don't get misinterpreted. If you are about to ask, not date, but what about fuck, my advice would be simple. Go fuck yourself. Which brings up another note. Polyamory is totally valid, and of course the two don't have to be mutually exclusive, but M-spec is not synonymous with polyamory. While there are polyamorous M-spec people, there are also monogamous M-spec people. Additionally, there are monosexual and A-spec poly people, so please do not conflate them as the same, as they are not. But with all that being said, as I've said this before, there is also no such thing as a slut. People fuck, get all the way over it. Another note, anyone about to get upset at the usage of the phrase nice ass I used there, men, women, and non-binary people are whole and complete people and unique human individuals, and they have bouncy butts that I appreciate greatly. So hopefully that was sufficient enough of an explanation of the split attraction model, as we're about to get into the other M-spec labels and their romantic counterparts. But if not, feel free to ask any good faith questions you have in the comments. Note the asexual spectrum and other spectrums are equally complex as the multisexual spectrum and absolutely worthy of their own videos. Without further ado, here is the general idea. There are likely even more, but this overview will suffice as an introduction. So first off, we've got bisexual, which is attraction to two or more, but generally speaking, two genders. The romantic counterpart is biromantic. There is also trisexual, which is attraction to exactly 3 genders, and quadsexual, which is attraction to exactly 4 genders. The romantic equivalents are triromantic and quadromantic. Keep in mind there are more than 2 genders, in fact there are a lot more than 3 genders, and perhaps we'll do a deep dive into that subject another video. Next up is pansexual, which is attraction regardless of gender, and therefore able to be attracted to all genders. The romantic counterpart is panromantic. Then there is omnisexual, which is attraction to all genders, though unlike pansexual, gender often still plays a role in one's attraction. The romantic counterpart is omniromantic. Finally, we have polysexual, not to be confused with polyamory, which is having multiple partners rather than a sexual orientation. Polysexual is the sexual attraction to many, but not necessarily all genders. Trisexual and quadsexual are sometimes seen as subsets of polysexual. The romantic equivalent is polyromantic. There are a lot of intersecting experiences many M-spec people have, which is why an inclusive term like multisexual is needed. It highlights that while avoiding invalidation. And I should note, not all these experiences are good. Erasure from queerphobic cishet conservatives, thinking we're just trying to be seen as cool by our gay friends. Erasure from within happens a lot too. A lot of times, people within the GRSM community that are homosexual come out as M-spec, often bi first, to give them some semblance of security, and that is valid as an experience. What is not, though, is thinking every single one of us that identifies with an M-spec label is doing the same thing. Some of us are just multisexual. Now, M-spec lesbians and M-spec gays are valid, as the split attraction model helps us to understand, but I've personally had to ask people to stop calling me a lesbian just because my marriage presents that way, and I'm sure many M-spec people out there can relate to that one. Just like many binary trans people come out as non-binary before they come out as binary trans to give them some semblance of security, that's an individually valid experience. But non-binary people do exist. Similarly, M-spec people do exist. And you know what? Different types of multisexual identities which deserve to have their own labels exist. Be inclusive. TERFs, not okay. Bi erasure, not okay. General M-spec erasure, even done under the false pretense of bi erasure, not okay. Be inclusive or shut your fucking mouth. We have largely shared experiences. We should be on the same team. We need to allow people in the queer community the right and the freedom to pick the label that most adequately expresses how they feel attraction in the way most true to their intrinsic authentic self, without fear and without judgment. We can all fight together to preserve our rights, regardless of labels. And GRSM allies, I see you too. Thank you for tuning in. And remember everyone, knock 'em out.